everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maura and I'm a physical therapist and certified yoga teacher. Today I'll be sharing a quick chair yoga practice for hip flexibility. Some of the poses will be sitting, and then near the end of the practice there will be some standing poses, but the chair will be there if you have any balance concerns. As always, please make sure that it's safe that you're practicing yoga and try out different variations of poses to find out what feels good for you today. I recommend having a couple of blocks or maybe some pillows nearby in case you have any flexibility restrictions, range of motion restrictions, and you'd like to use these props to get a little bit more comfortable in your poses. So when you're ready, we'll start on the right side. Scooch forward in your chair just a little bit and sit up nice and tall, as if you're pulling a string up through the crown of the head. Take your right ankle and cross it over the knee. And if you can't quite get there, you can always stack up a couple of blocks and just put your foot on it and then allow it to roll out to the side. But it's totally dependent on your range of motion. This is where blocks come in handy. So if you're taking sort of a seated pigeon variation, you can feel free to press down on the knee if that feels okay on your hip, opening up a little more into rotation. This is a really functional movement. Obviously it helps get to your feet, so putting on shoes and socks, this is a good motion to practice. Take a couple deep breaths here. And if you'd like, take a twist toward that leg that's crossed, maybe even reaching for the back of the chair if you'd like to deepen it a little bit more. You might feel some stretching through the hip in some different areas or into the lower back here. Take your time, take a couple of deep breaths. And then unwind your twist. Bring your foot down from whatever surface you had. Slide a little bit more forward, and now we're going to try to move the hip into an internal rotation, which we don't do as often. So take your right leg and move it out to the side, and then you're going to drop that knee in toward the other leg. Sit up nice and tall. You might feel some stretching along the outside of the hip. It's a little bit of an awkward motion, but it's good to make sure that you're maintaining good range in all the planes of the hip. If you'd like, you can just bring some movement into this, moving back to neutral and then back into internal rotation. You can roll your foot. The sole of the foot doesn't have to stay on the ground. You'll probably get a little further if you lift it up. One more breath here. And then bring that leg back up to neutral. I'm coming into a modified version of gate pose. Come over toward the edge of your chair. Bring that right leg out toward the side. Maybe shift a little more on the left side. Try and flatten the foot. Mold the bottom of the foot toward the floor. And then without putting pressure on your knee, inhale that opposite hand up, maybe looking up if that feels okay. You can also keep the hand on the hip, or even keeping this arm down, just bringing some side bending into the spine. There's lots of options here. One more breath. And then upright your torso, and then gently slide that leg in. Come back to the center of your chair, move your feet out to a wide-legged stance, and have blocks ready if you'd like. We're gonna come down into just a wide-legged forward fold. Now, if you can reach the floor and that feels good, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, use blocks or anything to build up the surface to make it comfortable for you. This is a great stretch to get some deeper mobility into your hips. slowly come back up to a seated position. Bring your legs in. Again, coming over to the side. I'm just going to move to the side so that you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to get into the hip flexors in the front of the hip. So slide toward the front of your chair so that your right bottom is kind of off there so you have enough room, and then bring that leg back. If the knee touches the ground, great, it doesn't have to. You can always put a block or a blanket there, or you can just hover the knee off the ground. We're really trying to get into the front of the hip. So keep a little tuck in the pelvis, rolling the tailbone under so that you can get into that psoas in the hip flexor area. Again, if it's comfortable, you can put your knee down for a modified low lunge, but it's not required. Gently bring that leg back in, shift yourself forward, and then a little bit into the hamstrings, sticking that right foot out. You might want to come a little further forward onto your chair. It doesn't have to be straight, and you can get your blocks involved here if you'd like, coming in for a modified half splits, getting into the hamstrings on the right side. Just take nice, slow, deep breaths. You're also welcome to use a strap here around the foot. If you don't want to bend forward as much, you can bring the leg up to you a little bit more. Lots of options for you. And slowly roll up, bring that right foot in, and we'll do all of that on the left hip. So starting with the external rotation, bringing the ankle over the knee, and if it feels good, pressing the knee away here. Again, you can keep your foot lower, even on the floor or on blocks. Building a surface up to you is all fine. Try and flex the foot to protect the knee joint. And then if you'd like, take a twist toward that left knee, maybe reaching for the back of the chair. Unwind your twist. Uncross that leg, and then bring the left foot out a little bit wider so we can come into internal rotation, maybe scooching further forward on the chair. Drop that knee in toward the other leg. Again, a very awkward motion, so take your time with it. If there's any pain, don't push into the pain. Just go as far as you can comfortably and just kind of see what different movements feel like, and it might feel awkward if you've never done this motion before. If you'd like to rock your knee back and forth, that's an option as well. You don't have to stay at the end of the range. Let your foot come up. Gentle pressure. This can be a little tweaky on the knee as well, so just do what you can. And then bring that leg back up, moving over onto the left side, coming into gate pose. Stretch that left leg out straight. Try and make the toes, all four corners of the foot, flush with the floor, and sit up nice and tall. If you'd like to reach up and over, you can do that. A little side bend here. You can always keep the hands down or even reach for a block. You can have as much or as little flexibility here as you'd like. And that's the nice thing about yoga. You can always tailor it to what you need. Inhale back up to seated. Pull that leg in, just slide it in. Scooch toward the front of the chair, wide-legged forward fold. Take a deep inhale and then hinge from your hips, coming down to any surface that works for you. If you can reach the floor, great. If you'd like a little boost, grab your blocks here. Try and elongate through the spine. Really make this motion come from the hips and not from the lower back. Maybe try pulling the chest forward toward the floor to take out any rounding that's in your back. And slowly come back up. Bring your knees in, coming into that hip flexor stretch on the left side. Turn yourself. I'm going to turn, you don't have to, but come toward the edge, get your left hip off the chair a little bit, and then slide that knee back. Again, whether or not you want to touch the floor, it's also going to depend on the height of your chair. This happens to be a low chair. Otherwise, you could stuff a block in here if that feels good for you. Roll the hips under, tuck the tailbone, try and isolate the front of the hip flexor into that psoas muscle, lifting up nice and tall. Try not to arch the back here. Make the movement come from the pelvis. And then bring that leg in nice and slow. Hamstring stretch on the left side. Slide that foot out. Leg does not have to be straight. And then come down maybe to your blocks here, pulling the heart forward, making the motion again come from the hips instead of the lower back. It doesn't matter how much or how little you can move as long as you make an effort to try and target the right areas with the poses. We don't want to substitute and cheat with other areas. We want to get all the benefits. And gently bring that leg in, roll your way up. Take a deep breath here, seated mountain pose. And now I'll just take a minute to rearrange my chair. We're going to do a couple of standing poses. If this was enough for you, have an awesome day. Maybe come back and try this practice again. If you'd like to do the standing, go ahead and make some room behind your chair, but keep it nearby. So I have my chair here in case I want to use it as a surface or a hold on to it. Move it a little bit further. Stand facing toward your chair. Take your right foot, step it back, press the heel down. So we're getting a little stretch through the calf, but we're also going to tuck through the hips again and get a little bit of a stretch through the front of the hip flexor. So kind of a twofer exercise. Keep breathing here, one more breath. Remember to push those hips forward and then step back, feet together again. We'll do the opposite side. So take a big step back, as much as you feel comfortable. With the left side, plant the heel and then roll those hips under. Really engage the glutes to do this. Tuck your tailbone and get a stretch in the front of that left hip. One more breath. Bring your feet together and then step both feet out. I'll turn this way into a goddess pose. So angle your toes out. Your knees are going to track over your toes, and you can come down as little or as much as you like. This is a nice strengthening pose for the legs and the hips because flexibility also depends on you having strong muscles. So you definitely want to incorporate some strength and balance to improve your flexibility. If you feel comfortable, you can let go. If you'd like to take it a little further, clasp your hands and maybe reach them up, sink down as much as you can. Inhale to stand. Release your hands. Let's come down one more time. Knees are tracking over the toes. Sit down into your hips. Press into all the corners of your feet, the whole foot. And try not to grip with your toes. Really make sure that you're pressing through all the parts of your foot, balancing your weight, and then press back up again. Bring your feet together. We'll do one balance pose before we finish out this practice. You can do any variation of tree, holding on or not. So some different variations are just using your foot as a kickstand and then maybe progressing up to the calf. If you'd like to bring the foot up to the thigh, if that's available, just make sure that you're not putting direct pressure through the knee joint. So take any variation of tree. If your balance is okay and you feel comfortable letting go, that's an option. But if balance is a concern, definitely keep at least a light fingertip pressure on that chair, just for safety. One more deep breath here. If you're already out of the pose, we'll meet you there in a second. Just walk it out, shake it out. We'll do another one on the other side. Again, taking any of those options, they're all available for you. And try to keep your gaze on a point that isn't moving. Press through all four corners of the foot that you're balancing on. Activate the quads, draw the kneecap up, pull the belly button in. I know it's a lot to think about. We want all our muscles engaged here. And release if you're not already there. Let's take a big deep breath, inhaling the arms overhead, and then bring your hands down to your heart. Let your breath out. Thank you so much for joining me for this chair yoga for hip flexibility practice. Make sure to like and subscribe so that we can practice together again. If you're looking for some other chair practices, check out this playlist over here where I have a few others and you can keep going or come back tomorrow and try it again. See you next time.